Welcome to Real Life Counseling, a podcast by The Counseling Corner. I'm Ryan, and I'm here with Dr. Ernie, licensed clinical social worker and founder of The Counseling Corner. Today's episode is a little bit different. Not only are we hearing from Dr. Ernie, but we are also excited to be hearing from the next generation of therapists. Our Counseling Corner interns are joining us to share what they're learning about marriage and couples counseling, relationships, and what helps people grow closer. These are fresh perspectives from people preparing to help others through some of life's most important conversations. Let's get right in. I want to go around real quick. Tell us your name, what you're studying, what university you're studying at, how far along you are in your program, and why you decided counseling was for you. I'd love to start with Ale, if that's okay.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. My name is Alejandra. I am currently in my third year in the master's program for clinical mental health counseling at the University of Central Florida. I'm also in my final semester of clinical rotations. So I'm currently interning at Orlando Health with the team member assistance program, and I've absolutely loved my internship there. And what mainly got me into studying counseling in general, I've always been fascinated, I think, with psychology and like what makes people tick. And I think growing up in Florida, I find Florida very diverse across the entire state. And I have a huge heart for so many marginalized communities where marginalized identities and intersectional identities have been experiencing a lot of pain, I feel, over a long time, but especially in recent years. And I feel that I want to be representation for a lot of those identities, but also I think that all individuals, regardless of their background, deserve a space to feel seen, heard, and valued, and empowered, and embracing their authenticity. So that was the main reason I got into the program, and I found that that's only gotten stronger over the years. So I'm very excited to graduate now in December and keep advocating for the communities as needed.
Congratulations in advance.
Yeah.
Very exciting. All right, Sophia, you're next on my screen, so I'm just going to have you go next.
Hi, I'm Sophia. I'm currently at UCF as well, but I'm in my senior year of my undergraduate degree. I'm studying psychology and early childhood development, and I'm currently an intern at the Counseling Corner, and that's just growing my love of counseling every single day. My interest really lies in the impact of childhood experiences on adult behaviors. I think once I started examining like my own childhood, talking to people around me, realized just how much every little thing you carry with you your entire life. A lot of adult issues stem from how our inner child was hurt. So I really want to work with children, adolescents, teens in my future career. And I'm really excited to talk to you all today.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Awesome.
All right, Noel, bring us home.
Hi, everybody. My name is Noelle. I am currently a student at the University of Central Florida. I am in the clinical mental health program there, also going for my master's, so the same program as Ale. However, I'm halfway through the program, so I just started practicum, just started seeing patients, so really getting a taste for the field and kind of what counseling has to bring me. So I really got into the field because I've always wanted to do a helping profession. I actually started at UCF as a biomedical sciences major. So I was going to be a doctor. That's what I thought. But I realized that my love was really for psychology. And I really decided to do counseling after being an intern at the Counseling Corner as well. It kind of showed me the ins and outs of what a counselor does every day. And so it really pushed me into that path. But now that I'm in practicum, I have learned that I love to work with children. I love to work with adolescents. That's like really kind of my target's been narrowed down a bit. So yeah, it's kind of what brought me into the field.
Beautiful. That's
Super
part of the
exciting.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, let's jump right into my first question. I'm excited to hear from you all on this. I just want to know what's one thing you've learned about conflict in couples that made you rethink relationships, or specifically how partners argue. Anybody can jump in first.
I had a thought on that. Thea had mentioned what happens in childhood and how much that impacts who we are as adults. And I think this internship that I'm currently at was the first time I started working with couples, both heterosexual and other forms of couples with different partnerships. And it has expanded how I view conflict in relationships, mainly because I'm realizing how much of what happens to us in childhood extends into adulthood and even adolescence, young adulthood, past relationships. And I think there's something my supervisor at my site says where conflict is a bid for connection. And I've reframed so much of what I see as arguments, fighting, conflict. It's all an attempt to kind of navigate attachment wounds from any point in our life and feel connected to another person, whether the conflict is just general irritation, or let's see, like anger, sadness, loneliness. There's some unmet need underneath that is aching to be heard. So I think validating that has been something that surprised me in what I expected couples work to be versus what it ended up becoming.
I definitely agree with Ale in that. And I've had the privilege to work with couples in practicum already. So I've already started to kind of like learn a little bit about the dynamics of conflict and like what really stems from it. And from what I've learned so far, another huge thing is that misinterpretation happens all of the time. And you can be like an active listening partner and like trying to listen to what your partner is saying, but that doesn't mean you heard them. It doesn't mean that you know what they were trying to get across with that message. So I think like taking a moment to like reflect with the partner and be like, okay, this is what I heard you say to me, has really been like an interesting thing that my couple has actually been working on. So yeah, that was something that helped me kind of reframe conflict.
Going off of like the breakdown of communication, in a lot of my early childhood classes, I've learned about brain states and how that can really destroy like communication between a couple. So I don't know if any of you have heard about like flipping your lid, but if my hand is the brain, this is your limbic system, and then this is your prefrontal cortex, which is all the higher order thinking. Let's say like a partner comes home from work and they're super stressed out, their lid is flipped, they're in the emotional part of their brain, and then their partner's trying to attack them with logic, like, okay, here's what you need to do, this is a plan, da da. Connection is not going to happen. They're in two completely different states of mind. So, like you said, Noel, like you need to calm down, take a beat, reflect, so you both can meet at the same point. I think that's helped me like reconceptualize conflict entirely. Like people need to be on the same page first and foremost, mentally, physically, biologically.
Yeah, most definitely, most definitely. One of the thoughts is we teach couples all the time is to engage, right, with the idea of help me understand, right? If you can engage with help me understand, you're on the same page, right? I want to understand. I want to hear you. We're on the same team. We might not be on the same page. Sorry, I misspoke. But we're on the same team, trying to get on the same page. I want to understand. We're on the same. We're on the same team. It's you and me against the problem. It's not you and me against each other. And when you have that mindset, and conflict is just basically a doorway to growth, right? As Ali was saying, it's just an avenue to connect, right? So if we can connect, right, and figure out, okay, where's the breakdown, because we're all just trying to grow, right? And when Sophia was talking about how she loved the childhood stuff and then seeing how it manifests it in adulthood, see that so much. A childhood issue, a teen issue, adult issue, older adult issue, it's typically the same stuff. It's just a different manifestation, right? It's just showing up a different way. And so if that's why I love doing like across the lifespan, because you just get to see it's the same thing. It's just a cool, different version of it that you're getting to work on. And when couples are coming together, that's just an extra layer of complexity that, you've got two people and you're trying to teach them, right? How do we do this? And looking at their patterns and how that impacts things. Because then you got this childhood and this adolescence and this adulthood and this childhood, this adolescence and this adulthood all coming together in this couple. It's pretty neat to get to slow that down, look at the patterns, and help them just connect in ways. And when they're willing to do that, conflict is not anything we need to be scared of. We just need to learn to do it well. It's like gymnasts, or skateboarders or stuff. If they learn how to fall well, they can do anything, right? They just, we fall, they bounce right back up. I've got a son who's a gymnast. I got one who's a wrestler. They fall, they're right back up in like a half a second. We just teach couples to do the same thing, which is teaching resiliency and how to bounce back. I can't hear Ryan.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you, Ryan.
Excellent. Okay. I'm going to put a beat in. I feel like that's probably one of the most important things that a couple can be able to do in order to be healthy is figure out how to bounce back and not see conflict as, a death knell or we're not supposed to argue. right? Reframing our positioning of conflict as growth, I think, is really strong. So we could end the podcast now and be totally fine, but there's a lot more to talk about. So let's do it. From what you've observed, ladies, and learned so far, what are the most common reasons couples are seeking counseling today?
Communication is why couples are seeking counseling. At least from my experience in practicality, my couple came in seeking just guidance with communication, how to communicate helpfully, how to like navigate arguments in a positive way, and kind of like what we talked about, not be scared of that conflict, be able to kind of go into it together and being on a team, kind of like what Dr. Reilly said. So communication is definitely the big one, I would say.
I think one of the misconceptions I've had is that couples counseling is just like the therapist is there to mediate the argument. But from what I've heard from a lot of the counselors at the counseling corner, they're not here to play referee. It's about like a bunch of little things are adding up and we need to target that, not we're coming to counseling to fight.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
I've also seen a lot of times, even if they'll tell me that the main reason for coming in is communication or like help us get closer together, like the underlying thing under that is their intimacy. And a lot of times I'll hear them use the word intimacy in regards to physical and sexual intimacy, but they sometimes neglect that emotional intimacy, relational intimacy, and their friendship. Because at the core of every relationship, there has to be some level of, I actually really like this person and I want to spend time with them. So not just that romantic relational aspect, but platonic relational aspect. So I've noticed that intimacy sometimes becomes a point of miscommunication or a point of conflict. And so sometimes the homework that I send my couples is, you guys need to date more. You need to go out more, just the two of you, or leave your kid at home. Like, it's okay to have an identity based in work and in family and in all these dynamics we have, but don't neglect the core of the relationship, which for most couples, it's the two partners.
Dr.
Yeah.
Ernie, have you seen something similar? Is that what you see a lot? Is the intimacy needs to grow in order for a lot of the other things to maybe fall into place?
Yeah, let me comment a little bit on that, and also something Noel said. So with intimacy, what I love to do, it's a little bit cheesy, but I love to just say into me see, right? Intimacy as in into me see, like you're seeing into the person, right? You're connecting with them, and the closer you see into them, right? And sexually, that's doing that, through the sexual connection. But then there's all sorts of other ways to see in to the person and have them see into you, right? That intimacy is such an important piece. Noel mentioned communication, I think, or it might have been Sophia, but I think it was Noel said communication, communication, communication. And that is such a vital piece, right? Oftentimes, though, there's two pieces of communication. There's, hey, we don't know how to communicate. We're just missing each other. And then I don't like what you're saying and you don't like what I'm saying, right? So that's a little bit different of a communication thing as well. And sometimes it's also what we were talking about before with that childhood stuff. Sometimes it can be patterns, like the pursuer distancer pattern that we see a cycle. So typically the pursuer is, I'm going to pursue you. I need to connect. I need to get us connected in order for us to heal and be better as a couple. And the other person is distancing because they're trying to protect it from getting ruined, right? They're trying to protect it from going bad. So I distance so it doesn't go bad, because the last 5 times it went really bad, right? Or in my childhood, when people, got connected, it went badly, right? So I distance, I pursue, right? Because in my childhood, right, that's how we did it, or we didn't do it, and then we need to do that so badly. So you have some of those patterns coming up, and there's all sorts of patterns that can, demand, defend pattern, right? The parent-child dynamic you can have even in a relationship where one person is like overperforming and one person's underperforming. The avoidance, accommodation pattern. There's all sorts of things. A roommate, right? Some people become more like roommates, even though they've been married. They've been married 25 years, but you would think they're They're two roommates just doing separate things in their life. There's all sorts of patterns that we're going to want to dissect. What we typically do is try to slow things down. Sort of breathe, right? Let's slow them down. And I think it might have been Sophia that mentioned about I think Sophia mentioned about we're not here to just referee a fight. That's what we're not coming in for that. We're coming in to connect. Slow it down, see the pattern. Both people want this to work typically. And if you've got two people who are willing, there is a way. We just got to figure out where it's going wrong, right? And start to see, and where it's going right, and then build off of those.
So as you all have waded into these waters, right, with couples and gotten in, we're not refereeing, right? We're helping them to connect. What is one thing you've learned during the training that you feel like every couple should know, but maybe they don't?
Something that comes to mind for me is the presence of trauma in a relationship. I think that we talked a bit earlier about this, like attachment and intimacy and inner child, what happens in childhood extends. I think that the presence of trauma or adverse childhood experiences or anything that's an atypical experience that causes some level of disturbance that's outside your ability to tolerate that disturbance, I think has a way of shrinking our ability to tolerate distress. And I think that awareness of it, I've noticed I've used a lot of psychoeducation on normalizing that you are not your trauma. You are not the mistakes that you make. You are not unworthy. I think a lot of couples I've noticed come in have a very negative focused perspective or weakness based perspective. And I spend a lot of time kind of psychoeducating or validating that it's okay. Like that's so human of you. And what has happened to you is not who you are. And there's always hope. You can always grow. You can always learn and you can get help. Like you're coming in for counseling, for couples counseling, like you took that first step. The stigma of you only come to couples counseling when something is wrong. No, like you can come in to always just grow as a person, grow as a relationship, grow as a partnership, whatever that looks like, there's always hope. And I think that that's one of the main things I've learned is how to reframe that perspective to be a little bit more compassionate, understanding, and patient.
You've said psychoeducate a few times now. Can you just define that for me?
Yes, in simple layman's terms, just talking about things, educating them. The psycho part is more including that psychology background that I have from my undergrad as well. Sophia talked about like flipping your lid. I think of that a lot of times with window of tolerance. So I've Googled that probably a million times to explain that to clients and teach them. So a lot of psychoeducation is explaining and teaching and normalizing and kind of bringing therapy talk to normal people words.
Got it. Okay, so it's almost helping people understand how their minds are working within a session. Okay. I'm curious. Do you find the rest of the group? Do you find that happening a lot within your conversations too? There's a decent amount of psychoeducation going on.
I kind of wanted to speak about psychoeducation because I think in this digital age we're in, pop psychology terms have like infiltrated everyone's mind, people who don't have like psychology training. So one thing that I wrote down for what I think couples should know, you should not base your relationship off of anyone you are seeing online. Of a lot of something people are talking about is attachment styles, like words of affirmation, gift giving. And I think that can create pressure for people to say like, oh my gosh, my partner doesn't have the same love language as me. Like this is never going to work. That's just not true. You don't need to change your partner to fit the mold that you're seeing. Like, oh, I like this couple on TikTok. My relationship should be like this. If it's not, it's a failure. I think more people need to realize opposites can attract. People can be different and still work in a relationship. Everything does not need to be perfect to be a healthy, like, partnership.
Okay. I think that's probably really helpful. But can you define pop psychology for me?
I can't say that I have like a perfect definition for it, but from my understanding, it's just when like real psychological scientific terms have kind of been co-opted by like the general cultural zeitgeist and kind of twisted
Got it.
into being different from what it actually means.
Okay. So people who who know enough to know, but not enough that they don't know what they don't know. And so they're going to go.
Exactly.
Okay. Got it. As if that made anything any clearer, what I just said. Fantastic.
If anyone else has a better definition, please chime in.
All right, Noelle, take it away. What do you think every couple should know but don't?
I actually wanted to comment on like the psychoeducation, and like as like a brand new counselor, I think like you go into it thinking like, oh yeah, like I need to teach my client this, and this, and this, and this, and like give them all this homework, and that kind of thing is like kind of your thought process of like, let me push CBT on this client, or like let me push something to make it stick. But I would say that like it really isn't all about psychoeducation. It's a lot, more about forming that connection with the client. And I think as like a new counselor, like kind of just taking that slow and not jumping into like a huge theory based homework assignment, bunch of psychoeducation all at once, like just taking it a little bit slow. But to kind of go into the question before, I wanted to kind of piggyback off of Ale because I think that she's really right in that like adverse childhood experiences or trauma can really show up in a relationship. And I think it really impacts trust in a relationship. And like trust is a huge foundation of like every romantic relationship, every couple, and even in like friendships, how you interact with your family, like all of it. And so I think definitely kind of exploring your own relationship with trust, and especially in your romantic relationship. And, you can build trust with a partner by doing what you're saying you're going to do. So like if you say you're going to do one thing and then you don't do that thing, that breaks the trust in the relationship. So like just like little actions like that can really feed into trust over time.
It's the little things. The
It
little
is the
things
little
end up
thing.
adding up quite a bit. Okay. You have all mentioned, I think everybody has mentioned attachment theory, or at least the word attachment, a few times so far. So I think it'd be helpful. Could somebody define attachment theory? And then, because I did a little bit of research myself, I Googled it. I'm now one of those pop psychologists. So could somebody define it for me, and then tell me how you learning about it has impacted your own relationships? How do you apply it yourselves in a healthy way within your lives?
Yeah, so I can go ahead and jump in if you want, and maybe the students can all jump and add in too. So I think of attachment theory as sort of like maybe like a user manual for understanding relationships and love. So it helps give some insights into how do we attach, right? So children attach, adults bond with their children, right? And so that attachment, right, how we attached as a kid can sort of lay the groundwork for how we do that in life. So there's different ways that some people attach, and it's very anxious attachment or avoidant or disorganized attachment. Right? So we're looking at how these attachment things went right and how they went wrong, and then how these people are connecting. Because when two people are connecting, they're bonding, they're attaching to each other. So attachment theory is just one useful thing to look at. As Sophia was saying, you want to be careful if Dr. TikTok, right? Or Dr. GPT, is telling you stuff just because you watch some sort of video or something like that. You want to be careful because they're throwing around a lot of terms that you might not quite. You're just getting like a lot of these content creators they don't even know at all what they're talking about. They just did a Google thing and they're good at presenting, right? So they're good at making a cool looking video, but their material isn't always the best. Certainly a big piece, even if the material is good, is finding how that fits. There's all sorts of good things. You could go in a health food store and you could see all this healthy stuff, but it might not be healthy for you. That might not be the thing that you need. What you're deficient in this, and here you are overdosing sort of on this, right? You're taking way too much of this and not enough of this, so you could get it wrong. So attachment theory is just a useful one window, one lens, one user manual to use to connect.
The way I've learned about attachment theory is that kids use their caregiver or parental figure as a safe base. So if they don't have that safe base, they can't go out and explore the world and learn how to be a person. And that directly relates to how we form relationships later. If we don't have a safe base to build our own safe base and like self-regulate, we're not going to be able to do that with our partners. And something really cool that I learned about attachment theory and relationships is depending on your attachment style, it differentiates like what information you seek about your partner. So avoidant people tend not to want to learn much about their partner because they want to maintain that emotional independence. That's what's kept them safe in childhood because they didn't have a secure figure. So they feel that it's threatening to learn more about their partner. It's going to get them closer. But anxious people, they want to learn as much as possible because they think that'll strengthen the relationship, and my partner will stay closer to me because I want to know all about them and they'll keep me safe because I didn't experience that in childhood. So I really love learning about the ways that, again, it carries our childhood experiences carry with us throughout our entire lives.
Good stuff.
Something else I was thinking of as I heard both Dr. Reilly and Sophia talking is that attempt of attachment. It's to create a sense of safety, felt safety, internal and external, not just, oh, I know that I'm safe from an alligator attack or a bear attack, but I also want to know that I'm safe from the things that are really scary, that are more abstract. And a lot of times, trust is one of those foundations we need to feel securely attached. And so when we start feeling like trust is being threatened, our safety is being threatened, if we don't have secure attachment, that can cause us to go into, what's the word I'm looking for? Behavior patterns that are not necessarily desirable. Like we're not acting in the way that's most authentic to ourselves, but our protective parts start coming out. And in an attempt to protect us and recreate that sense of safety, we might actually be creating more harm in that process. So I find that creating that baseline for trust is one of the more powerful ways to set that foundation, strengthen that foundation. And it's not a one-stop shop where, oh, I've created trust, I'm done. It's an ongoing process. It's a continuous process as we shift through the different phases of life, as we shift through the different phases in our relationship, of different phases of the world, whatever it may be. But that trust and that sense of safety is really important.
That's so
Definitely.
interesting. Especially your last comment about as you move through different phases, because I've only been married 7 years, but I feel like we've gone through 3 or 4 phases, and I'm learning that I am not the person I was on my wedding day, and neither is my wife, right? But we are continually building trust as we become the new version of ourselves as each phase grows and continues. And so, yeah, having somebody that you can be safe with because of the trust that we built has been really important as things have just kind of, just in our personal story, that radically changed over and over again. And so it's giving me confidence as you're saying these things. Allie, I really like my wife, so thank you for that. I'm going to tell her after this.
Hey,
Noel,
Ryan, it makes me think.
Go ahead.
Sorry, it makes me think of when at my wedding, because I've been married 25 years, and at my wedding, my best man, or at the rehearsal dinner, gave a toast, and he said, it's an old Irish saying, "May today be the day you loved each other the least." Right. So
Love
it's
that.
just yeah. So as you're going older and you're connecting, right, and you're working through things and you build together, you can get closer and closer. I was thinking about what some of the students said with regards to like LA brought up the trauma, and trauma, right, really can impact where we're stuck in what was then feels like it's now. And so when you have that, or when you had an insecure attachment, right, some sort of difficulty with the attachment, then what you have is you have your basically your thinking boss, your prefrontal cortex, right, is not really quite in charge. And you have the hippocampus, which is basically like the library part of the brain. And you got some old books open and they got like bold letters saying bad stuff, right? And then you've got the amygdala part of your brain, the guard dog, and it's just barking super loud, right? Because it thinks something happens, you interpret it this way, the guard dog starts barking, the amygdala, the alarm system is going, and then it's really hard to communicate during those times. If imagine if right now we just had a guard dog barking and an alarm system blaring, what's the likelihood we could really hear and understand and connect? We would just be like, ah, right? But that, you know, the lid's flipped, right? We're not hearing each other. So to take that then and put it back then, not have it now of trauma, right? They're not in that anymore. To help them do that, help them quiet that guard dog, strengthen that prefrontal cortex, close those books, right? The unhealthy books. We want to close them, and not just close them, put them on the shelf and push them all the way in, right? They're always there. We can take them out if we need them. This is, we're not getting rid of them. We're just putting them where we don't need those out like that. Just a couple thoughts there.
No, I love that. And it's reminding me of a conversation we had about some trauma therapy a few weeks ago, which was that the books are still there. Like, it's not like we're erasing the trauma. We're just changing the way that we use and frame it and think about it within our story, the role that it plays within our everyday thoughts. So it's funny to see how it's all connected, right? Because we only have one brain. Okay. I'm going to skip subjects a little bit, though, toward forgiveness, right? Because one of the biggest ways to build trust and intimacy is to be able to forgive, because we are never going to not need it, especially with our partners. So I do want to ask the students, what have you learned about forgiveness in relationships that maybe even challenged your assumptions and the role that forgiveness plays within a relationship? I'd love to start with Noelle on this one.
Yeah, sure thing. I think for me, a big assumption that like just growing up, and it's definitely not the healthiest one, but I always thought that forgiveness was weakness. I always thought that like I was then being like a doormat if I forgave like something that my partner did or something that like a friend did or even somebody in my family like my mom. I always thought that it was like me being a doormat, but it's actually the opposite. I think it's actually super empowering and like being in the counseling field, learning about forgiveness in that way, that it's an empowering process for you. Like you're letting go of like your resentment or your bad feelings towards what happened. But forgiveness is also not forgetting. So you're not kind of like you were talking about with the trauma, like the book is still on the shelf, but it's closed so that you're able to kind of move on from it. But yeah, I definitely used to think that forgiving a partner was weakness, but it's really empowering for you. And then it allows you to rebuild that trust that is so important to the foundation as well.
Most definitely.
To kind of build off that, when like the trust is diminished like that, it creates resentment. From what I've learned and experienced, resentment is like the killer of all relationships. Forgiving hurts yourself in your relationship, or not forgiving, sorry, hurts yourself in your relationship more than just forgiving the person, but also not forgetting and using that to guide your actions in the future.
I think something else that stands out to me is how Noelle said this idea that forgiveness is weakness. And I think that that's much more relatable than people would think. I think that a lot of people might have similar feelings at some point. I think also forgiveness is seen as this rigid, happens once, or like that phrase, forgive and forget. And like Noelle said, forgiveness does not mean forgetting. I think forgiveness is accountability. Not just you holding another person accountable, but holding yourself accountable, holding your boundaries accountable for what you do or don't accept from others towards yourself, and the way that you feel that others should be treated, how you should be treated. And forgiveness, kind of how we talked about phases before, it can also come in phases where I've heard people say like, oh, I need to forgive them to heal. And that's not necessarily the case. Forgiveness is an ongoing process. And it doesn't, like we said, it doesn't mean forgetting. So you can move forward in baby steps. You can move forward as a team and work on that forgiveness to rebuild that trust. Because a lot of times, depending on the context, there's some rupture in the relationship. Something happened where we don't feel connected anymore. We don't have our trust anymore. We don't have our intimacy. We don't have our safety. There's conflict. And to repair that rupture, to repair that relationship and that connection, it takes work. But I think sometimes that can feel scary. Putting in the work to repair that relationship can feel daunting. And in counseling, we talk about how there's always hope. And you are a person who has grown. Look at where you started however long ago when you were born, to 5 years ago, 10 years ago, a year ago, a month ago. You are always becoming a new version of yourself. This relationship is becoming a new relationship as you move forward together. And forgiveness is possible. It just also might need some patience. It can take some time.
Yeah, one thought on that. I'm sorry. Yeah, one thought on that is that, and I think this connects right with what was just said with regards to it. Forgiveness is not just a thing that we do; it's who we become. We become better at being a forgiving person. We're becoming good at this. It's like learning how to use power tools or something. You become really handy, right? It's great to be really handy, or it's great to be athletic. You don't just go for one run. Oh, I did it, right? You become good at running or good at whatever it is that you do. And forgiveness is just something else that we can be good at. And it's a really, really super useful thing to do. If we don't have forgiveness in a relationship, we don't have a relationship. It is because there's going to be things that happen. There always are. There's always things in therapy. A lot of times we talk about the frequency of the issue, the intensity of the issue, and the duration of the issue. And we're always trying to decrease the frequency of the bad things and increase the frequency of good things, and decrease the intensity of the bad things and increase the intensity of the good things, and decrease the duration of the bad things, right? And increase the duration of good things, right? So we're trying to do that. But just because we decrease the frequency doesn't mean we get it to zero. Progress isn't probably going to look like there's no frequency of ever any bad things. There's no intensity of any bad things. There's no duration, like the bounce back is instantaneous. No, there's going to be things that occur. So becoming a forgiving person is real important, and learning how there's lots of pieces of being forgiving. For instance, in the forgiveness research, we talk about the injustice gap. How do you reduce the injustice gap between what should be and what was? There's certain things that should have been this way, but it wasn't. It was this. One way that we can do that, there's lots of ways to do that, but one way is, if you're in a relationship, is learning how to apologize well, own things and repair them. A good apology, a lot of people don't know what a good apology is. They just go back to when they were 5 and mom or dad said, say you're sorry to your brother or your sister. I'm sorry. Right? We really want to be able to say, I'm sorry, and name it. Like, I'm sorry for such and such. And then this is an essential piece, I think. And here's why I'm sorry. If I've wronged you, I'm sorry for wronging you, because you deserved for me to do that the better way. You deserve to be treated better than that. That should have been this way and it wasn't. I let you down on that. So if I can identify what I did, why it was wrong, like what should have happened, and then I can connect with what I'm going to do or have already done or am doing to improve that, to repair that. Then when you get to, will you forgive me? It makes sense. Then it makes sense. If I've really done all that, people want to forgive if those things are right. So teaching people how to do a good apology, teaching people to let go of where they're being triggered by, we talked about trauma, where they're being triggered about some old thing. So yes, this person did this thing, but we're reacting on a 1 to 10 scale. It was like a level 3, but we're reacting like it's a 9 or a 10 or a 93, right? When it's really a kind of a smaller thing, teaching people how to do that well. Forgiveness can really, really, really be something that just, it's like the hinge to the door. It opens up the door. If the hinge isn't working, right, we want to put some oil on that, get that moving, because it's essential for things to work. If you don't have forgiveness, you're not going to have a relationship, because you're going to have injuries. It's going to happen. You got to be able to bounce back, and forgiveness is a great part of being able to bounce back.
One of the best analogies I've ever heard about the role of forgiveness, and it's funny, Sevilla kind of mentioned this, that conflict and even the small little things, they plant seeds of resentment in a relationship, and forgiveness is weeding. Like you weed out those seeds before they have a chance to germinate and establish roots, and it keeps your relationship, right, your garden, healthy. And the sooner that you can do it, and the more accountable it is, right, the more thorough your weeding process. So I love that there's obviously comprehensive knowledge here about the role of forgiveness. And so I think couples should be very confident that this is a good place the counseling corner and his team to know what to do and how to forgive and how to be accountable, and not just sweeping things or expecting people to move on. It's not what it's about. So
Yeah,
we're
right.
just
Right.
about. Oh,
Quick with
go ahead.
that one couple comments. One, if you don't get those weeds out, that resentment, it can become bitterness, right? And bitterness and resentment are like, it's like having a python loose in your house. I mean, you just,
Poison.
or like cobra, it's just gonna, you got to get that out of there. Right? If you don't do that, it's so dangerous. But if you learn how to do that, it can be so freeing. We can have just great relationships, and to get to walk through this, right? I think all of the interns and students that we have today, they're just already seeing as such an honor to walk through this process with couples and see families heal, and
Mm-hmm.
just generations are changed when you change your relationship. It can really change generations and generations, because what mom and dad do impacts the kids. And so it's just such an honor to get to walk with couples, and it's an honor to get to walk through, this process with students. Like these three are great students, and we got a bunch of students that are just so wonderful. And seeing them get, it's neat to work with clients, but it's neat to get to see these interns go out and know that they're going to be helping all these clients. So just a couple of thoughts I wanted to throw in there.
I love that. You should be, very proud of these three and what they're gonna do. It's multiplying impact for sure. So we're coming up on the end of our time, but we always like to spend a little bit of time busting myths, busting counseling myths on our show. So I'd love for you to just share with me one common marriage myth that studying counseling has helped you let go of. So what's the myth? Why can you let go of it? What's the truth?
I can start. Um, I think the most common myth that's told to like every single couple is never go to bed angry. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I talked about like flipping your lid. If two people are in their emotional states of mind, you're not going to reach a resolution to an argument until you are both in your logical, like forward thinking states of mind. So sometimes going to bed is what gets you there. But at that same time, it doesn't mean you should neglect your normal, like, nightly routines. Still sleep in the same bed, tell each other that you love each other. That way, the foundation is still there. Hey, I don't hate you. I'm just kind of mad right now, and we'll talk about it later. So it's okay to go to bed angry with these conditions.
I think those conditions are probably smart, but yeah, that's a good one, and that's been real. I've been like convicted about that as well, but have found like there's just no way. Like we're gonna be up until 5, and then nothing's gonna get done because I'm barely human by 2. So yeah, no, that's a good one. All right, Ale, what's yours?
I'm thinking, I think Sophia had mentioned it earlier, but this perception that social media creates of what a healthy relationship looks like, of what a perfect relationship looks like, what a perfect two individuals look like. And I think that we need to remember that social media is social media for a reason. It is people showing off the best sides of themselves and not always the most authentic. And so it creates this myth and message of, so my relationship doesn't have hope. I don't have hope. I'm never going to get better. I'm never going to look like that. I'm never going to be like that. And I think those nevers become very, very strong. And I feel the opposite. I feel that there is always hope for individuals, for couples, for marriages. I think that the hope has, like, it's kind of talking about that weed analogy. I think hope is a seed. And I think seeds grow when they are nurtured, when you water them, when you give them an appropriate amount of sunlight, because everything in moderation, every plant is going to be different. I think meeting needs as they are communicated, as they are discovered, because sometimes I see couples talk about how, well, I don't know what I need right now. And that's okay. You're learning. This is your first time on this earth for most people. And I think that it's okay to recognize that you do have hope and it is a seed. And if we can just find that seed, let's figure out together, whether it's in your relationship or here in a couple session, what does your seed need to flourish, to blossom, and to nurture that growth?
And it's usually not Instagram.
Right, right.
All right, Noel, bring us home.
Oh, that was so beautiful, Ale. I'm like almost in tears over here. That was so perfectly said. um, okay, my myth is going to be a little bit more like, I don't know, clear and cut. But I think that a myth that counseling has busted for me is that marriage is 50-50. Like each partner is always giving like 50-50 to the relationship. And that's just impossible. It's just not true. I think that there's going to be times when you need more from the relationship and when your partner needs more from the relationship. So keeping score will do no good there. Really, just being able to be flexible with your partner and giving that partner what they need or asking for what you need in the relationship and not just accepting things from one another because that's what society expects from us is to always be at our 100 and give our 100. So I think, yeah, giving yourself grace, give your partner grace, that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah, Noel, with that, one of the things that I hear all the time is people will come in and they'll say, if he loved me or if she loved me, they would know without me having to ask. They would do it without me having to ask. So going along with that, we have to be able to identify what are our needs. Share that. This other person doesn't have, extrasensory perception of what's going on with you, and they can just know, right? And people will think that they should. Another myth is that it should be easy. Love should be easy. No, it's hard work. It takes a lot. Things that are worth something are worth doing well, and they're typically hard. You don't get, if you ask an 85-year-old, 98-year-old, right, was life hard? They'll say life was hard, but it was worth it, right? Life is hard, but it's worth it. Love, connect, do the work. What else are you going to do? Sit around, watch TikTok and learn, stuff that's not good? No, put effort in. I'm not trying to bash social media, but there is a lot of nonsense out there. But if you can realize it is hard work. It is hard work, and it's supposed to be hard. It's like school. It's supposed to be hard. That's why you feel so good when you get through it, right? And a good workout is supposed to be hard. If you just go to work out and you just sit and eat pizza, you're not going to feel so good at the end of that workout. You might like the pizza, but you're not going to feel good. Hard work is something that things that matter, it takes hard work.
I kind of wanted to build off that for a second. The first part, I think bringing it back to a place of TikTok and social media, something people say a lot is if he wanted to, he would. People will like comment that on people's posts about their own relationship. And back to that garden analogy, I feel like that's like throwing toxic waste in your garden. It's just not going to help anything. Can't expect, like you were saying, Dr. Reilly, your partner to read your mind.
Right. Very true.
I'm so guilty of that. And that's one of the areas I've had to grow so much in my relationship. Because, oh my goodness, I don't even know. Like, I didn't even know it was coming in. And then, thank goodness, my wife is actually studying counseling as well. So she was like, hey, stop it. And I was like, all right, fair, help me. And so we're doing it together. It's been great.
That's
but now
awesome.
she's going to feel super validated listening to this episode. And that's fine. She deserves it. Well, if you can't tell, I'm going to talk to our listeners real quick. If you can't tell, at the Counseling Corner, we believe marriage is something worth learning and growing at in every stage. And if you're curious how marriage or couples counseling can strengthen your relationship, give us a call or visit counselingcorner.net to learn more or book a session. We've got offices in Orlando, Claremont, and Orange City as well. I want to say thank you again, everybody, for coming on. This has been a lot of fun. You're all very inspiring. I'm very confident about the future of mental health, at least in our city, if not our country, because you guys are part of it. So thank you so much. Everybody, you've been listening to Real Life Counseling, a podcast by the Counseling Corner. Big thank you to our interns. Big thank you to Dr. Ernie. If this conversation has encouraged you, please share it with a couple or a friend who might need a reminder that healthy relationships take work. The work is worth it. The work is good. The work is the good. So please go share it. Take a minute to review us. Subscribe on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you're listening. Or visit us on YouTube if you want to watch the video recording. But that is all for us. Have a great week, everybody. Take care of yourselves and those you love. Everybody, I will see you soon. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, Ryan.